Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric. I got a fun and random episode for you guys this Friday, and I've been meaning to make this for a while because this game came out about a month and a half ago working in MAME, and it never used to work before. I'm going to try once at the pronunciation, then give up completely. Truck Kyosokyoku. I'm sure I'm wrong, leave me a comment down below, but you tell me what you think of that pronunciation. But this is a ridiculous arcade racing game running on PlayStation 1 arcade hardware. It did get a PlayStation 2 port, so that's why this is not on ported playlist, but this is a lesser version that has way more PlayStation 1 vibes going on, and to say this game is absolutely over the top and ridiculous would be an understatement. If you've never played Pepsi Man on the PlayStation 1, this is basically the arcade racing equivalent of that in both personality and just absolute strangeness. You get a character selection screen and we're trying to get home to see our cat. At least that's as much as I can understand of the story because it is all in Japanese. But as right off the top, this is just an arcade racing game that deals with deco trucks in Japan. Now apparently in Japan, long haul truckers love to decorate their trucks with paintings, lights, and all sorts of other manner of insane awesomeness, something we don't really get in the United States of America, but I wish we did. This game is so simple to pick up and play, but when you're actually playing it, you cannot believe that this seemed like a good idea for a game, because while it is an insanely fun game and worth playing, on paper if somebody pitched this in an office somewhere, you would think to yourself, why in the hell would anyone want to actually play that? But in execution, now that the game is done and works in MAME, it is just some of the most fun you can have for about 12 minutes. You'll see right here there are branching pathways. If you take a risk and go down to a different path, you can save some time on the timer, but the minute you hit that sand, you're going to start sliding out and you need to be careful, because every single vehicle you hit and every single accident you cause is going to reduce your timer down. Every good thing you do, like attack your rival truck and blow them up by hitting them, is going to give you a time increase. This is basically a gigantic game of risk versus reward. If you play your cards right and do the right things, you'll have a plethora of time by the end of the game. If you start making mistakes, you start losing time, and then it becomes basically impossible to beat this. You'll see right here there is a danger icon up here, and I almost hit this Japanese hitchhiking man or homeless man, so I get to go to a different area, which if I perform correctly in is going to give me a massive time advantage, and if I screw it up I'm not going to be able to finish the stage and I will have to start over, because if you run out of time in this game, you cannot complete the stage. You have to start from the beginning, you can't just credit feed this. But you'll see here a train was coming towards me and I only got around it at the last possible minute, shaving off a lot of the course and getting me to the goal quicker, but that is the risk versus reward. But so much of this video is just the fact that this now runs in MAME. This is one of those games that people wanted to play for the longest time as the PlayStation 1 arcade board version, and it just was not available. But recently there's been a lot of innovation in MAME. A lot of 3D games that never used to work before are now working, and I absolutely love that and applaud it when it happens, because there's an absolute ton of 3D games that could work in MAME, just no one has actually looked at them yet. So I will leave the names of the developers in the description below so they get their credit, and I know I haven't mispronounced anything. But again, I just love games like this. It reminds me of Code 1 Dispatch from Konami or other ridiculous racing games that exist out there, because not every single arcade racing game is just about the competition to try to get first place or get the fastest lap. Some games like this are just here to give you absolute charm and weirdness. If you haven't watched my video on Code 1 Dispatch yet, I will link it below, because it has a very similar vibe to this, where the absurdity is actually why you're here. This game is super easy to understand. You've got a gas pedal, you've got a brake pedal, and you have a horn which sometimes makes traffic get out of your way, but it's very inconsistent, almost to the point where it seems like it's been programmed in just to screw you over. In every single stage you're going to get a truck that is your competitor. You just basically need to ram it until it runs out of health bar. If you ever played 18-wheeler American Pro Trucker from Sega or the sequel to that, King of Route 66, you're going to understand the rival system. But while Sega was in here for pure racing, Namco is in here just for pure fun. And I absolutely love the PlayStation 1 look of this game, because it did come out on PlayStation 2 as a remake, and while that game is as fun technically, it looks way too nice, and a lot of the charm for this game just comes in the pure jankiness. But you can take the risky path again, and so long as you have enough speed, you can jump that lift bridge just like it's the Blues Brothers in downtown Chicago. I only live about 7 miles away from where they jump that car in real life, and it just works. All you need to do is navigate around all these cars, hit nothing, and you will get to the end of the course with plenty of time to spare. But this game also has a hilarious soundtrack. It's different in different regions, but this is the dump that exists, so go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds. I'll be back with way more game. I have absolutely no idea what genre that is, but I would say it's country fried reggae with some steel drums in the background and maybe a little bit of outlaw western. That's definitely not a genre, it's just the different samples I hear within the game. But this also has a little bit of a Touge feel to it, where you're racing up and down the countryside of Japan, kind of like you're playing Initial D, except it's not anywhere near as drifty. You can in fact though drift this truck. It is not easy, and more often than not it's just going to cause you to go right into the wall. But you'll see here when traffic gets heavy, you start hitting things pretty quickly, and every single strike is going to be at least a few seconds off of your timer. And when the police do show up, if you hit them, it's more like 7 seconds. But I love when you get into the cockpit view here as well, just jamming into absolutely everything. We have an entire leopard print dashboard as well as headliner to this vehicle. It never explains really why it is, just each truck has its own personality, its own driver, and its own storyline. And you'll see here we're in a haunted cave, and if you're in the first person view, you will get that ghost going by your window. In some ways this feels very similar to Point Blank, not in the genre whatsoever, but in the ridiculousness in what's going on, and I just missed that little shortcut right there, unfortunately. Namco's developers had a massive sense of humor. Games like Point Blank or Obakyun, another light gun game featuring ghosts from Namco, just did absurd things for the fun of it, and it 100% worked when they were doing it. Now sometimes if you just be weird for weird's sake, it's going to end up making a bad game, but there's something about that Namco formula. They end up doing weird things and it just comes out as magic on the other end, and this is what that game is doing. It is so simple. It is just an A to B race. It kind of feels like Outrun, except as opposed to actually drifting and trying to race against things, you're just doing ridiculous big rig over the road racing with such fun things going on. You'll see here after every level you do get an area map, and we're getting close to the end of the game. There's 5 stages, and the time and your points at the end are going to rank you. That is all there is, but the fun in this game is actually playing it over and over again to get a better score and a better time. You can time attack this and score attack this all day long, and because it only takes 12 minutes to see the credits, it is absolutely worth it. And this type of thing you want to show your friends when they come over. If you're having a game night and you want to knock this thing out, grab a few beers and keep passing the controller friend to friend and seeing how they can do with time. You are going to be laughing and you're going to have an absolute blast, and that is why emulation is so important. And I always like to highlight when these games come to MAME, just because the developers should be celebrated for doing these things. It's not like there's a massive list of people out there that care about this game. I know about it, a few other people do that I know as well that I talk to, but otherwise this is not the type of game that's going to show up on any list whatsoever. Even if you googled best unported arcade games of all time or best Namco arcade games of all time, I would guess that 10 out of 10 lists would not even know that this game exists. And that's why MAME emulation is so incredible. People out there love something, even if it's because they only saw a few photographs of it in a magazine somewhere, and they get attached to the idea of wanting to play it for themselves. It's a lot of the reason why I have so much of my collection. It's just things I saw along the way that I wanted to experience and couldn't, and decided I'd find an arcade board for. So having this here today is spectacular. Now if you do play it in MAME, be aware it takes like 45 seconds to boot. It's going to show you half of a color bar screen and you're going to swear that it froze. Just give it time, you will get into game. And I only say that because I thought it froze a few times before I got a little bit further in. But this is just incredible. We just jumped an 18-wheeler over a broken bridge downtown Japan in the nighttime sky, landing it perfectly and driving out of it. If that is not fun, I do not know what is. And that's why this is just so incredible. There's so many amazing games out there that you've never heard of, and Truck Kyosokyoku is definitely one of them. And when you get to the cockpit view, the sense of speed definitely does come up. Even though it says you're going 140, 150, 180 kilometers an hour, I will say that the sensation of speed in this game isn't huge. But one more taste of the soundtrack before I show you guys the credits, because it gets insanely weird, but I do love this song. It just goes from country music to island music to what seems to be some sort of Hawaiian surf theming music as well, like you're watching a surf film from the 60s or listening to the Beach Boys. Don't know why that's in the game, I just know that's what it sounds like to me. But as we get to the final enemy here, I will say this is one of the hardest in the game to defeat because the life bar is absolutely massive and you have the police on your tail as well. But when you're going through this downtown area, it is just spectacular. It reminds me of the final level in Pepsi Man, and that's the thing, none of the developers of this game seem to have anything to do with Pepsi Man, but it has those also same similar vibe. And as you come around the corners, as you're close to your house, your cat just starts going insanely excited to see you, like all cats do. Mine does the same thing. And you get these absolutely insane drawings coming over the screen with what looks to be a demon cat straight from hell cheering you on to get you home quicker. I do not understand why this is going on, but I do not care. When I see it in action, it makes me happy. I've got a smile on my face. I am driving a massive decorated Japanese 18-wheeler through all of this game, and it just 100% makes sense in the fact that it makes no sense whatsoever. But once you get through the final stage, you get your result. I was a Shogun driver with an A, so that's not bad at all. And then you get this absolutely insane cutscene at the end with Japanese kanji. Don't know what it says, but I know the cat's thinking about food. And if you know cats whatsoever or dogs, I've got one of each. Pretty much the only thing they ever think of is food. But this cat sees a mouse, and that's going to incite a whole nother thing going on completely. But if you've been looking for a new insane game to play on MAME that never used to work, and in like the last 6 weeks or so finally started working, here is the game for you. Sorry it took me 6 weeks or so to get around to this. It was on my list of things to do, but that list gets longer and the days get shorter. But that's about it. Go play this game. You're gonna love it. Bye bye.